Hey, guitar players. Today we're going to be talking about creating a sustainable living in music and playing guitar for a living. This is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos, which are usually based on guitar instructions. Just a little bit about me, because if I don't say this, no one's going to take what I say seriously. I've been playing guitar for 30 years. I've supported my wife and children. I have 7 children for 15 years playing music, and I've played over 4,000 gigs. I've opened for Willie Nelson, REO Speedwagon, Dwight Yoakam, Martina McBride. I've done countless sessions, worship gigs, lots of different genres. I went to Berklee College of Music, also McNally Smith College of Music, where I graduated magna cum laude. And not saying you have to go to college to be able to do this, but I thought, since it's one of the most common questions that I get, that I would do a video on this. So, first of all, when you want to make a living in guitar, most students that I talk to, they have this idea in mind that they're going to be their own artist, and they're going to be writing their own songs, recording them, and that's the path. And I just have to tell you right now, the vast majority of professional musicians are not a solo artist, okay? Especially if you're a guitar player. There's different types of musicians out there. So, for example, myself, I love the guitar. It doesn't matter if I'm playing nylon string classical or acoustic guitar, electric guitar, whether I'm doing worship, pop, rock, or blues, funk, country, whatever it is, I don't care, as long as I have my guitar in my hands. If that's you, then this is possible. If you are a very specialized player, maybe you only do one style of music, maybe you only do heavy metal or something like that, it can be a little bit harder, okay? So the first thing I'm going to say is the gigging culture right now is quite a bit different, especially after COVID. So how did I get 4,000 gigs? Well, for the vast majority of my playing career, I played 4 or 5 nights a week. And I did that in house bands in Dallas, Texas. I was the lead guitar player in the house band at Billy Bob's, Texas. We played Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday every week. Lots of other clubs have this. This is called a residency. So finding a gig that does that, okay? Also, worship gigs, churches do pay quite well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the idea is that you have all of these different income streams, even being a guitar teacher. We'll talk about that. So the goal is to say, I want to play guitar for a living. I need to diversify, have a ton of skill sets that I can use to make a living. I've even made $1,000, doing, taking divine service from a Lutheran church and turning it into something that a 4-piece band could play. So doing worship music for that. I just rewrote the whole thing so that, they could do it for keyboards, guitars, bass, vocals, that type of thing. So the first place to start off with, if you really want to play guitar for a living, is to understand that it's not about you. When I was in Cowboys Dance Hall doing that gig, we had something called the Gold List. This is 700 songs. You have to learn 700 songs note for note in 4 weeks. And it's just understood that if you want that gig, you have to learn all of these songs. And people ask me, how many of those songs did you actually like? I don't know, 4, right? And so it doesn't matter if you like the material. If you want to play guitar for a living, you have to enjoy the instrument, and playing for a living more than just, I want to play my favorite songs. I see this as a big problem with a lot of beginning bands. They all pick their favorite songs that they enjoy playing, songs that they think convey their image as an artist, that type of thing. It doesn't work. If you want to play in clubs, you want to get gigs, and you want to get paid, your job is essentially a beer salesman. Your job is to create an environment where you will actually be playing music that causes people to dance. People who dance get thirsty, and then they're going to spend money at the bar. So your job is to cultivate an environment where this happens, okay? And this is why country music has had such an enormous impact on the music scene, is because all of the subject matter in country songs is drinking beer, hanging out with pretty girls, that type of thing. That's exactly what people want when they go out to, enjoy a Friday night, okay? So first thing to get over is, you only want to play your favorite style of music. Of course, you can do that on the side, But how do we cultivate these skills so that we're versatile enough? I did it by going to music school. And I will also say I'm a college professor. I was the head of the guitar division at Visible Music College for a couple years, and I also headed up the music theory division there. And when you go to college like Berkeley or Musicians Institute, the goal of the institution is to make you as versatile as possible. So that you can, do a rock gig, do a blues gig, do a jazz gig, that type of thing. And this goes back to my idea of practicing. Why in my lessons do I talk so much about finding every note on the neck, finding every chord on the neck, being able to find things quickly? It's so that you can learn songs fast. I will tell you, this has happened so many times my first couple of years where, rent was due on Saturday morning and I was $200 short. So I took a gig, playing in some weird cover band for a wedding or something like that, just to make the money. Okay, so you have to have that ability. Most of the time when you get a gig in a well-known local band that, makes plenty of money doing covers and stuff like that, is because either they've just fired their guitar player or, that person leaves or quits, okay? And so that's an emergency situation. That means if you want that gig, you have to learn all of their materials super quick. And yes, it only takes 40 to 60 songs to be able to play a 4-hour gig, but you have to have the ability to do that effectively over a couple of days, okay? And so everything that I teach, everything about, note recognition and being able to improvise, being able to figure out the key of a song really quickly, has to do with this, desire to, not, have a struggle going through these songs. Even worship guitar players have a really tough time with this because, maybe they have a limited skill set, but if you know all your chords, triads, scales, arpeggios all over the neck, every inversion of every chord, it takes you 15 minutes to learn 5 worship songs, and then you can play a Sunday morning for $350 and get paid, okay? You don't want to spend 5 hours working up the tunes. So we need to be focused on our musical skills. And, sometimes students be like, well, why do I need to know every note on the neck? That's stupid. Well, I mean, if you're like Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day, his job is to play Green Day songs. His job is not to do a jazz gig. His job is not to do Journey on a wedding gig. But if that was something he had to do to feed his family, he would have a harder time with it. So we need to stop taking our favorite musicians, like so-and-so didn't do this, or I learned that Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't know how to read music. Okay, but that's what he does. He does Stevie Ray Vaughan music. So if you want to be as open to any possibility, any sort of opportunity that happens, you have to be ready. This happened in Minneapolis in the mid-2000s where it was a very large, rock scene. And then for some reason, K102, the local country music station, became one of the top radio stations in the country for the new modern country music. And now you saw all of these classic rock guitar players with their Les Pauls, distortion pedals, and their Marshalls trying to figure out country licks, because everyone wanted a piece of the pie in that scene. And, they weren't able to do it because they had never done that thing before. So it's really important for you to be thinking about the future and to be as versatile as possible, okay? So, the way that gigs pay typically, if you are doing like a variety band or you're doing a, country cover band, that type of thing. When I was in Dallas, $150 a night was the low end. I mean, we did a lot of private parties where we got paid $400 to $600. I've done New Year's Eve gigs that were over $1,000. So you have to be in with the right group of people. It's high intensity. There's not a lot of room for error. You need to know all the tones. You need to be versatile on multiple instruments. You need to be able to learn songs quickly. I've even done this thing where at a wedding gig, someone, one of the bridesmaids requests a song, and then all the band has to go into the bathroom on a break with their iPhones held up to their ear. Okay, so that's 2-5-1, 3-6-2-5. Okay, that's in the key of A flat, right? So you need to be able to interpret those things. So all these music skills are not about just an elitist mentality, meaning like, oh, I know all my music theory and all my ear training and that makes me better. No, it's survival. It's survival. If I have to learn a song at a wedding gig like that for a bridesmaid or something, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to interpret what you hear and be able to do it in that key. You also have to be, able to do these things in multiple keys, right? I can't tell you how many times we used to have this woman come out to our country gigs and she wanted to sing Silver Wings. Silver Wings is an E by Merle Haggard, but she wants to do it in C. Well, you can't screw that up. You have to be able to do that on the fly. So we need to know how to transpose to different keys. So these are all the skills that you need to cultivate when you're in your practice room. And this is why I tell people, like when I was at Berklee College of Music, I practiced 10 to 12 hours a day for 4 years. And most of that time, let's say 9 or 10 hours of that time, I was not learning songs. That blows a lot of people's minds. I spent 6 years in music college, and not once did a teacher teach me a song. It's about the nuts and bolts. Think of yourself like a chef, right? I'm a terrible cook. If I want to make a meal for my wife, I have to get, the joy of cooking out. I have to go to the store. I have to find the correct spices and all the ingredients and everything. It takes me forever to put the meal together. And even if I do go by the cookbook, it probably is going to be a disaster because I don't know what I'm doing. Right? But a professional chef can actually, without a cookbook or anything, know exactly the right proportions to use in every situation. They're able to put the thing together, and it's amazing. That's what the professional guitarist does. You don't need to look up chords because you know where they all are. You don't need to learn the harmonic minor scale to play, Hotel California, because you already know it all over the neck in every key. And so this is why in your practicing room, when you're practicing your scales or sight reading or doing these types of things, instead of thinking about like, this sucks, I don't want to have to do this, what am I doing this for? Plan for the future. You're developing skills that are going to be incredibly necessary later on. Okay, so first part is just cultivate, the full musician. Work on your ear training. Work on your theory. It's not going to kill you. Work on your technique. Work on playing multiple instruments. Know how to play, in different tunings. Know how to use a capo. Know how to play a little bit of keyboard. That's one of the reasons why at music school we all had to play 4 years of keyboard. Why? I've done a wedding gig on keys, and when I'm teaching, the first year that I was teaching, I had like 10 to 15 piano students. Are you going to give up that $400 a week? I don't think you are. So being able to do all these things is incredibly important. And it's not about your talent as much as it is about your desire and your attitude. Instead of taking every musical task as something like, why do I have to do this? Think about, where can I use this, right? I remember one of the first times I was extremely humbled is my blues band in high school was doing a wedding gig. We were doing, the normal stuff, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, stuff like that. But they wanted jazz, dinner jazz. That hour of dinner jazz was the hardest thing I had to learn that entire, week. And, at the time I was like, well, this is dumb. Why am I spending so much time on this one thing? It's because you can't do the other fun stuff unless you're able to do what the requirements of the gig are, Your practicing time doesn't need to be fun. It just needs to be purposeful. You need to have a goal. You need to write things down in a journal. You need to focus on, again, doing all these different skills. Something like sight reading, for example, is something I know a lot of guitar players hate. But how are you going to know every, note on the neck, every inversion on the neck? How are you going to be able to have this multifaceted view of everything, like I've talked about before, like this F note's the root in the key of F, but it's the major seventh in another scale, but it's the 13th in A flat, but it's the sharp 9 in D7 sharp 9. That note is something in all these other locations. So being able to visualize that and hear that is going to be incredibly important. Okay, so how do you quit your job, play guitar for a living, and create a sustainable career? Well, first of all, you have to be open to doing things you may not like. You may hate playing worship music, but do you want an extra $1,200 a month? You probably do, so get good at it, right? Learn how to use a helix, learn how to do all the different delays and settings like that. Just do it. Other things, like you may hate country music. But I tell you this right now, country music is the only style of music in the modern, variety of genres where you get to play a guitar solo every single song. You get to use nice gear and nice guitars and come up with nice effects and stuff like that every single song. You're probably counting the song off and playing the intro lick. It is one of the most guitar-heavy styles out there, which is why most guitar players who play for a living do country music and they do worship music. Rock music at this point is very specialized. There's a lot of players that do a very specific thing with rock music, and you have to understand something. If that's your favorite style of music, great, but you have to be versatile. Okay? So other things that you can do is teach. So teaching guitar has made me probably 50% of my income over the last 20 years. Okay, so imagine, if you have a bachelor's degree in music, you can probably start off at $60 an hour. But if you don't, that's not a problem. You just have to know how to teach, which, you can learn how to do that as well. So if you think about, I don't know, doing 30 lessons a week, half-hour lessons at $30, you can see where this goes for an income point of view. After moving back from Berkeley and Boston to Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2004, I started a music studio where at one point I had 80 students a week. I was in there from Monday morning. I got off on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays for gigs, but otherwise I was teaching, 70 to 80 students a week. That's important. And you may say to yourself, well, I don't want to teach. Well, I'm saying that a lot, I probably didn't either, right? So, but here I am now, teaching guitar for a living, and it's super important. Now, the important thing about teaching is you need to not only be able to create a practice plan for these students, you need to have a long-term vision for them. The worst kind of guitar teacher is the one where you come into the room and they say, hey, what song you want to learn today? Because now you're letting the student lead everything. Imagine if you were to come into your first, karate lesson in a dojo, and you go up to the sensei and you go, you know what? It's my very first lesson today. I want to learn how to do a roundhouse kick. They would just say, there's the door, get out of here, right? But so many guitar students do that. I've had guitar students come in, they don't even know how to tune their $100 acoustic, and they want to learn Hotel California or Stairway to Heaven or something like that. You have to be the authority in the room. You have to be able to find their deficiencies and work them up from that. They're going to appreciate that. They might think that you're a little bit of a jerk in the beginning, but my job is not to be a guitar student's friend. My job is to make them better. And so I do a diagnostic where I go through all of their playing. I'm like, hey, you've been playing for 20 years, but you don't know where all the notes are on the neck. Or, you don't even know your major scales, that type of thing. So being able to do that. The first year I did teaching, it was a struggle. People came in with all sorts of things they wanted to learn. One kid wanted to learn Eddie Van Halen. The next one wanted to learn Eric Johnson. The next one was a dad that wanted to learn campfire songs, and somebody else was learning worship music. I had this one girl that we, over the course of 6 months, went through, I think, every song in the Bare Naked Ladies catalog. So you have to be able to learn songs on the fly in the lessons. And the last thing you want to do as an instructor is have to look up everything like a transcription or look up a tutorial on YouTube, because the students can be like, well, why am I paying you? I could just find that thing online as well. So you need to have enough command of the instrument that you can learn songs by ear in the lesson room right away. You have to have enough command of the instrument that you can tell them exactly where their deficiencies are and how to, fix those things. So the other thing too, I guess I'll go into studio work. We all know that studio work is not what it used to be. It's fairly rare right now. A lot of studio musicians are doing things from their homes. But I would just recommend, finding someone local that does this stuff and, seeing if you can't get in on a few sessions. Sessions are pretty high, demanding. They're high intensity, and there's not a lot of room for mistakes and stuff like that. So you have to have all your sounds together, multiple guitars and different tunings and that type of thing, and be as versatile as you can. Speaking of the studio scene, let me show you a book that was really helpful for me. And this is Tommy Tedesco's For Guitar Players Only. And Tommy Tedesco was the guitar player for the Wrecking Crew. And so this band, this studio band, was responsible for the vast majority of hits on the radio from the 60s and 70s. Okay? And so this guy, he's the guy that did the original Batman theme. He did the Jaws soundtrack. He played with tons and tons of different artists. And a lot of times you're listening to music and you don't realize that it's this guy. And so in this book, he actually talks about all the different skills required of a professional guitar player. Your ability to sight read on demand, your ability to improvise in all keys at all times through any genre of music. And so these are all really important things. And studio musicians, if you're really good at it and you can come up with a quality product for your boss, which is the person that's hiring you, right? Then you're going to get called back. And they're going to say, oh, this guy has all the tones. This guy can sight read. This guy can improvise. We don't have to take multiple takes. He's not mucking up the mix, right? So that's super important. Another book I'll bring up is The Advancing Guitarist, by Mick Goodrick. So Mick Goodrick was a teacher at Berklee. He passed away a few years ago, but he was absolutely fantastic. This is one of the best guitar books in the world on improving your skill set. He goes through all these different ways of thinking about practice, and is very thorough with, melodic minor, harmonic minor modes, chord scales, triads, inversions, drop twos, drop threes, that type of stuff. Very helpful. And if that intimidates you, just buy it and start. That's what I did. Just buy it and start. And, just kind of see where you're going. Get a teacher if it needs, to be that way. So when it comes to music theory, I've written a couple music theory books myself. You can reach out to me if you want that perspective. But one of the best books that I've ever seen on this is the Jazz Theory book by Mark Levine. This is so thorough, and it's amazing the way he talks about everything. And so he gives you real examples from real music. It's like, okay, where's the Lydian dominant scale used? It's used on this song for measures 45 through 62. He marks it all out. It's all notated. He shows you exactly what's going on, and it is really helpful to kind of see that. And I know we're in a society right now where a lot of people have like these, you want short-term goals, you have short attention spans. So I encourage you to just spend some time with these types of theory books and manuals and stuff like that. Add it to your playing and just do a little bit each and every day. Find a teacher. If you're interested in lessons and that type of thing, I do lessons over Zoom, and I also have a lot of extra materials on my Patreon, which you can find in the description below. So a few last thoughts before we get done today. So we talked about, gigs, being versatile, being able to play a lot of different types of music, teaching, worship gigs, studio stuff. How about consulting? One of the things that I used to do is I worked at the Guitar Sanctuary for 10 years as an instructor there, but I might have a student that bought a brand new Mesa Boogie Mark V amplifier, and they would pay me to come to their house and show them how to use it. Right? Or, you get people that get, a bunch of new recording gear. You can actually, show them how to use it. So find all these different musical ways to come up with income. For those of you who are looking for a good boost in the start, I've had some more wealthy students pay for things in advance. So, for example, someone can pay for a whole year's worth of lessons up front. And that, $4 or $5 grand or whatever they pay you is going to be something that you can actually have to give you a boost while you're kind of making a transition. So a few other thoughts about gigs. People talk about the three things that you need to have for a gig. It's you enjoy the music, you enjoy the people in the band, or it's good pay. So you need to have two of those three things, right? So it can be good pay, and the music is cool, but you don't like the people. Stay in the gig. Or it's music you hate, but you like the people and you like the money. Stay in the gig. Or it doesn't pay very well, right? That's not really the topic for today, but you love the people, you love the music. That's another reason to do that. And there's no reason that you can't continue to do your favorite style of music. I've had my own band, Corey Hicks and the Dirty Tricks, that I've played with, for the last 10 years or so, off and on, doing various gigs and that type of thing. Don't do it very often, don't record much anymore, but that's not the point. I have it on the side as kind of that artistic outlet that I can use, okay? So, what are you guys thinking about this? Put your questions in the comment box below. I know a lot of people don't talk about this type of thing, but it is possible if you have a certain perspective and attitude about playing guitar that, you can do this, all right? If you absolutely do not want to play other styles of music other than your own, you're going to have a harder time making a living. If you don't want to teach, you're going to have a harder time making a living, okay? That's just what it is. The best players I knew, they do theater gigs, they do church gigs, they do country gigs, they do rock gigs, they do jazz gigs, they do studio sessions, they do consulting, they do instructional content on YouTube, and that's how they make a living. So it's probably not the most exciting thing that you heard today, but it is truthful. So, and as a reminder, I have a wife and 7 children, and as long as I had my guitar in my hand, I was okay. And everything was just fine. So, all right. Well, if this was helpful for you, please like and subscribe. You all know that helps the channel. I do have my Patreon information below. On Patreon, I have all the diagrams and lessons that we use. I have all like the downloads for that type of thing. I have my guitar music theory books on there. And we're going to be starting something new this month where some members are going to be able to like submit videos and stuff. We're going to do a solo challenge. It's going to be a lot of fun. So appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today. Hope this was very helpful. And we will talk to you next time. Peace.